can't see me, you Stevie. Wondering how I reach more evolutions than Eevee and make it look easy.
What is up, Earth's mightiest subscribers? It's Ernie, the Blerd without fear. Welcome back to the channel. All right, so today's video, we're going to be talking about ThunderCats number 10 and 11. And first up with issue number 10, one of the things that I thought was pretty awesome about this is that I remember when originally talking with Declan about this series and, you know, where it was going to go once they had gotten their initial story arc off the ground in the first like 4, 5, 6 issues. One of the things that he promised was that we were going to get to know some of these characters in ways that we never really have before, and not just the heroes of the story, but also its villains. Now, while we have yet to really see much more of the characters, and while we have already started to see just a little bit more of Mum-Ra, I feel like Mum-Ra, even though we see Mum-Ra more often than not, I feel like Mum-Ra is being held very close to the chest on this one, and I think that's fine, because I feel like there are some tricks that Declan has up his sleeve in regards to the character, so I'm actually perfectly fine with us not really digging too terribly deep into Mum-Ra as it stands right now. And while we've seen Monkian and Vulture-Man, the character that I was really happy to see get a lot more screen time than what I think people might be used to is Slithe. Now, in the original animated series, Slithe was pretty much the main mutant that the ThunderCats dealt with, but Slithe was never really a nuanced or in-depth character by any stretch of the imagination. I think even across 65, maybe more than that, some odd episodes of the original animated series, Slithe was little more than a cookie-cutter villain. And I mean, let's be honest, for an 80s animated series that was basically just, a 20-minute long advertisement for, toys to be sold to children, I don't really expect a whole lot in that regard. But I actually appreciate that Declan took the time to sit down with this character and really try and flesh him out in ways outside of maybe the ThunderCats 2011 animated series. I feel like that's really like the one place other than this comic we have really seen anything done with Slithe. And what I mean by that is, in this, we learn the reason why Slithe hates the ThunderCats so much. Yes, of course, we know that there was this war between the Thunderians and the mutants, and that it was, for all intents and purposes, a foregone conclusion. And that it was a foregone conclusion that the Thunderians had won. We also learned not too terribly long ago in ThunderCats number 8 that when the mutants were defeated, it was believed by the mutants, at least the surviving ones like Slithe, they were of the belief that all of the other mutants were destroyed. They were killed off, slaughtered, down to the last woman and child. And that is one of the main reasons why Slithe hates the Thunderians so much. He went to war to fight for his people, but when he came back, he returned to find his wife and son missing, presumably killed. At least the evidence that Slithe saw before him when he returned home would lead you to believe that, but that actually wasn't the case. As we did learn in that same issue of ThunderCats number 8, it was revealed that Lion-O's father had in fact not killed all of the mutants. What he did is that he took them and placed them on Third Earth, something that he did long before the destruction of Thundera. He had placed them there so that they would be far removed from the war, and that maybe if, and I don't know why he thought this would be the case, but if the mutants thought that those other mutants were killed, it would make Thundera look strong and maybe potentially quell the dispute between them. But in fact, it only made things worse, as killing off women and children tends to do to opposing sides. But in the end, the fact that Slithe lost his family, this is what has been motivating him. This is what has been driving him to want revenge against the ThunderCats, and more specifically to take down Lion-O, because it's an eye for an eye in this situation. Claudius, the former lord of the ThunderCats, is dead. He died with Thundera. So if Claudius was responsible for taking away Sly's family, ultimately in his eyes putting them to the sword, the only way to make things right is to take out the last of Claudius's line, and that would be Lion-O. That is ultimately, in a nutshell, why Slithe is going so hard in the paint against the ThunderCats, a motivation he didn't really have before, and I think it's something that actually gives a little bit more depth to him. It makes him more than a cookie cutter villain. It's something that makes him three-dimensional. In this, we also learn that Slithe's son is not actually dead. As I stated earlier, the mutants that were, Quotey Fingers killed off were actually taken prisoner and sent to Third Earth ahead of time. So now that Slithe is on Third Earth, he has unknowingly, at least up to a point, reunited with his son, Scale. And Scale seems very dead set on getting vengeance against the ThunderCats as well. Now, one thing to take into consideration that his son is alive is that this would seemingly make revenge a family business now for taking away the family matriarch. But that's not the case either, because as it turns out, Slithe's wife is still alive too. So it's one of those situations where, while we've at the same time given Slithe nuance, there is the potential in this to maybe give Slithe less of a reason to fight the ThunderCats. But I feel like that's something that won't last long. I feel like whatever is happening here, I don't know, I get this impression that Slithe being reunited with his son Scale and, soon to be reunited with his wife, I feel like none of this can last. This is Third Earth, and the worst possible things usually tend to happen to people on Third Earth. This could very easily be something that could, put a wedge between Slithe and Scale, because I don't know, I just get these vibes. Scale is always looking at Slithe in some very unsure ways. Some of it could just be the fact that he's trying to determine whether or not this is actually his father, but at the same time, it kind of seems like he's eyeballing him. He's sizing him up. I just know this. I don't trust him. I don't trust him. This is a kid who's been raised away from his father. He has had to kind of grow up and become the man of the house, and yeah, this guy is no joke. I'm pretty sure Slithe has no idea what he's walking into right now. Not only that, but Scale has also witnessed his father not be the strong warrior that he believed him to be. There's multiple points where Scale is taking stock of the fact that Slithe he ain't that dude. He ain't him. Not only that, but Scale is the current leader of the reptilians of Third Earth, so I wonder how leadership is going to work out. Like, is Slithe going to try and take leadership of the reptilians of Third Earth from Scale, or is Scale going to have to step in and be like, hey, no, this is my show? I feel like there's a lot of room for some bad things to happen between them. I don't think this reunion, this family reunion is happening right now. I don't think it's actually going to be as happy as a lot of people might want to believe it's going to be. All that said, I think this was a fantastic issue to actually focus 100% on Slithe. Like, there are no other characters that are focused on other than Slithe and his son Scale, which I'm here for. I actually think that's a very good idea, and I actually like when the series, well, yes, is trying to tell a straightforward narrative, there's lots of moments where they do tend to kind of take a step back and focus on something else, and I think this was a good one to do it with. I'm just jumping in real quick because I want to remind you guys about the 40th anniversary ThunderCats Classic Years Omnibus. This is something I actually talked about in a previous video, but the deadline on this crowdfunding event is fast approaching. I think as of the time of this recording, there are 10 days left to get in and get yours. This crowdfunding effort is in order to release a collected edition of those early ThunderCats issues from back in the old Marvel days. These were the comics that were coming out around the same time that the animated series was, and they're re-releasing these, and the effort is fully funded, but they are moving towards stretch goals now. They've already hit one of their stretch goals, which is going to get every backer a free ThunderCats animation mini print, and with 10 days left, there's still plenty of time to reach the second secret stretch goal. I can't tell you what it is. I'm not allowed, so we're just gonna let that slide. That said, if for whatever reason you've missed out on this, and I don't want anyone to miss out on something like this because I'm still salty that I missed out on the same thing that was done for the old Gargoyles comics. So I just want to make sure everyone gets an opportunity to check this thing out, and I'll have a link in the description and the pinned comment below, and it'll take you right where you need to go. With that said, let's get back to the video. Now, when you get over to the 11th issue, that's another story. We're actually back to ThunderCats business as usual, and with everything that happened recently with the ThunderCats Apex one-shot, the cat is out of the bag. This is one of those situations where, yeah, everyone knows now. There's no longer a secret. We now know that the new ThunderCats character, Apex, is technically not a new character at all. It is, in fact, Lion-O, but a Lion-O from the future, a Lion-O who has seemingly taken the power of Mum-Ra, and in some ways, it almost seems like he is also like not just taking the power of Mum-Ra, but also absorbed Mum-Ra in some way. Like the very spirit of him exists within Lion-O on some level. And you know, we don't really have a lot of information to back that theory up, but I mean, it's there. Like it looks like it is the case. You can just see it on Lion-O's face. Not only that, he's channeling Mum-Ra's magic. But in this issue, we actually get to see Lion-O go face to face with Mum-Ra. Now, technically, not the first time we've seen it in the series. Just a few issues back, Lion-O and Mum-Ra threw hands with each other. But during that moment, Mum-Ra was not at 100%. He was still regaining his power. And at the time, Lion-O did not have access to the Sword of Omens. And he still doesn't. The Sword of Omens still remains broken as it was in the first issue. And I look at this particular scenario that Lion-O and Mum-Ra have going on. They're going back and forth. We're getting to see some of that classic banter between the two characters as you would probably be used to if you watch the animated series. But it's also something that's really cool because I feel like the seeds are already being laid for the birth of Apex. Now, Mum-Ra the Ever-Living, while he technically makes his debut in this issue, it is not something we actually see fully in action. For the most part, the fight between Lion-O is going to be a straight up Sword of Omens-less Lion-O versus just regular Mum-Ra as we saw before. But Lion-O is giving as good as he gets. And I can't wait to see exactly what it is, like what is actually going on between these two characters and how things are going to be shifting. And I can't help but wonder, and just in the sense that I know that the universe that Declan is crafting with ThunderCats is supposed to be more indicative of the 80s original series, but I feel like there are just so many things that are kind of, you know, jumping around all over the place, in terms of where things are and how things are happening. I do enjoy, what Declan's crafting here. I think that with everything going on here, changing it up, and it's the same thing I say for the Energon universe comics, is that you got to change things up. You gotta mix up the formula, and that's what Declan's doing with this. He's not telling you the exact same story over and over again. Yeah, sure, there's some things that pop up that are like, oh hey, I remember that from so and so cartoon. But yeah, mixing it up in such a way that it's not necessarily just going to be same old. That said, I can't wait to see what the inclusion of the Silverhawks into the universe is going to do as far as changing anything. And while it has not been officially greenlit on any level, and I have no inside baseball on this, this is just me talking out of my ass here at this point, but it just seems like it would be too easy to, especially with some of the other Dynamite books crossing over as of late. And to be fair, a lot of them are non-canonical crossovers, more specifically the ThunderCats Powerpuff Girls crossover. But we also know the Space Ghost and Johnny Quest are going to be having a crossover here pretty soon. And I don't know. I can't help but wonder, like, man, it's going to be wild once the Silverhawks are established. And I think that's the most important part. First, the Silverhawks are going to have to be established, which we're going to get that in this coming month. But we need to get that off the ground first before we can worry about crossovers. But this is pie in the sky right now. I'm looking ahead and thinking, like, man, having the Silverhawks in this universe, like just somewhere out on the other side of things, and then getting both of these franchises to a point where okay, ThunderCats is doing good. They're looking good right now. And then we can move on to whatever's the next big thing for them, and then the Silverhawks, get them going. Once they get going, get about 10, 12 issues up under them, and then we can maybe see what happens there. Man, like I said, the future is bright. The future is bright for the ThunderCats Silverhawks universe. I don't know what they're calling it, if it's going to be like the Thunderverse or the Silver Cats, the Silververse, Thunder, whatever. I don't know. Everything has to have a name. Yeah, you have to have a verse. You have to have a name and a verse. That's how this works. But hey, maybe look. I'm just saying. Nick Barucci, I know you're watching. Can we get Bravestar? Can we get Marshall Bravestar involved in this on some level. Can we get cops? I keep saying it. Can we get cops? I'm just asking. There's no Turbo Team. No Turbo Team. Unless it's a horror comic. If it's a horror, if it's like one of those horror comics, I'm here for it. I'd be here for it because that cartoon, it still fucks with me to this day.